everybody, girls, guys, and MBs alike. Welcome back to part two. I'm so glad that you can make it. We are now going to be discussing the psychological consequences of being a gifted kid for Hisoka. Now, when you think of the term gifted kid, there is normally an association of positivity behind it because gifted, right? These are all the honors kids, they're all the smart kids, they're the kids who pretty much like maybe go on extra field trips compared to the standards classes or maybe have like the pizza parties early. Like these are essentially the spoiled kids in some people's eyes, not everybody, right? But for those some people, I just want to say that everything in life has its dualities. What may be seen as initially a positive can have its negative impacts as well. And also, the way that the school system is set up within the US is an entire different mess and a half, and how we view students and their value and all the other stuff that pretty much can be a critique of our capitalistic society in and of itself is definitely a different topic for a different podcast episode, but it all does correlate together. We just won't talk about it now. However, what we will be talking about is more so the psychological slash negative implications of being a gifted kid in said school system, or in this case, just in general. Especially when it applies to our character that we are currently analyzing, Hisoka from the series Hunter x Hunter, created by the great Tagashi. So I'm going to be diving into that and diving how that connects to his character, and you guys are going to be following with me. But before I do, I want us to check out today's latest sponsor. Because other than viewers like you, I also have support from other people. Let's go check out what the sponsor is. This podcast is sponsored by Huda Beauty. Hey, are you looking for a gift for your mom on Mother's Day? Or just something cute to add to your makeup set? Well, you can get this easy bake blurring loose baking and setting powder. I guarantee it's going to be a good time for both you and your mom. This lightly pigmented, silky setting powder that bakes and sets, blurs the looks of fine lines, and locks in your makeup for 10 hours with an airbrush finish. Trust me, it's gonna make your face look so snatched and beautiful. Along with that, it comes with so many different colors that are described as flavors because it's going to make your face look delicious. The flavors and our colors are sugar cookie, cupcake, peach pie, cherry blossom, ube cream, ube birthday, pound cake, cinnamon, banana bread, kanafa, and blondie. Wow, I feel just hungry, but the only thing I'm hungry for is good looks after this setting powder is going to be all over your face. So again, come and get this delectable gift for either you or your mother on Mother's Day. To check out this amazing deal, go click on the link in the description and have fun. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your regularly scheduled programming. Now, let's get into what being a gifted kid with burnout even is. Like, we have to first define everything so we can have a pretty strong consensus because even though we might have a good idea of what it is, I want us all to be on a similar playing field. Hold my hand. Okay, similar playing field. So let us dive into what being a gifted kid with burnout even is before we do anything else. Gifted kid burnout pretty much is when a child endowed with above average abilities becomes exhausted as a result of too much pressure from unrealistic expectations that they either set for themselves or others have placed on them. Symptoms include apathy, isolation, irritability. Now, how this applies to Soya's character is essentially the symptoms of apathy and isolation I want to focus on the most. I don't think irritability comes until later into his teenhood when it's like pretty much comorbid with conduct disorder. So we're going to put that third symptom to the side for now. The first and second, apathy and isolation. Isolation, especially, we see throughout the entire manga where he pretty much kind of shuts himself off from like other people, with the exception of like maybe Abaki, aka what I would consider to be his foster sibling, pretty much. With the exception of her, pretty much he isolates himself from like other people. And to be fair, like some of the adults, maybe not all of them, but some of them have definitely not gave him the best first impression, to begin with. So I understand that maybe for safety reasons, he just decided to isolate himself. And I think that is pretty much a protection barrier number one, which we will definitely talk about in the mental health section. But yeah, isolation just in general, pretty much to keep him away from others, and the jealousy that others may have due to the fact that he is quote unquote gifted. This can happen in real life too. There are cases where people basically have to shut themselves out from their peers because their peers feel jealous, um, because of the way that everybody is separated. Which, even though I was considered, technically speaking, a gifted kid when I was younger, I don't like the idea of the whole separation because it doesn't really give kids in standardized classes really a chance to begin with. I feel like if they were given a fair chance, maybe some more time or something. I don't know. I just feel like the way the US school system is set up is like a mess to begin with. But you know what? Different rant, different podcast video slash episode in general. So, isolation. Pretty much keeping himself from other peers for a variety of reasons. Apathy, which pretty much is more so like nonchalance, if you can call it that. Pretty much just him being like, okay, like for him, it's difficult because surface level, you would never assume apathy. But the moments that he is alone, you can definitely tell that the weight and pressure of being kind of placed on this pedestal amongst like the other responsibilities that we talked about in the child entertainer episode, kind of mixing in together, it is literally draining him. And one of the ways that I've seen this isn't even from the words. Like the way that his body looks in that one scene in which I think he was playing with a screw. Because of course he was. He's a kid. He was playing with a screw. And his eye bags were just like so heavy. So heavy. So it was just the first physical sign to me where I was like, this kid is tired. All of this is being done. And it's like, he is the Maddie Ziegler of his group. And he is tired. And to be fair, Maddie was tired during that whole thing. There's a good reason why she doesn't really talk about dance moms like that anymore. It's very traumatizing in and of itself, right? The burnout, the drain, the whole I'm just starting not to really care, right? I'm going with the flow, I'm keeping up with the Joneses because this is all too much for a child's brain. All right, so now that we pretty much got a good picture of the definition, we're now going to see what exactly I meant by too much for a child's brain. We're going to see how that occurs. Okay, everybody, so we're pretty much going to be talking about why does gifted burnout even occur? Like, why does it happen? Let's get into it. Several factors lead to an increased chance of a gifted kid burnout, including perfectionism and isolation from peers. We do see this with this character, all right? And it also can include being raised by authoritarian parents. Now, for Hisoka, um, I would, what would I put, Meritno's parenting? Technically speaking, considering that is his guardian. This is hard to pinpoint because, like, it's technically authoritarian, just not in the traditional sense. Because the way that Meritno, again, views Hisoka is essentially as a product in some kind of way, right? Something to profit off of for the most part. So, I guess naturally the parenting would be more authoritarian because you pretty much want a strict standard for your best selling product to adhere to. Um, to even call that parenting is putting it lightly. So we'll say authoritarian ish. I wish there was another name for this kind of parenting. Exploitative? Like, it's a lot worse. At least with authoritarian parenting, you could have somewhat of an excuse that they care about the kids. But with this one, it's just like, it's a form of objectification almost. They don't even see the kid as a human. It's literally just profit. They just see dollar bills like Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob. It's insane. Okay. Next thing. Um a school curriculum that is inflexible, repetitive, lacks purpose, and focusing on results over well being. He doesn't have a traditional school curriculum, but you could pretty much say that this does describe pretty much what his life is like within the entertainment troupe. That, it's pretty inflexible, it's pretty repetitive, and the end goal is pretty much being the best of the best, right? Being the best group amongst other entertainment, either groups or pretty much any acts within what is their version of Las Vegas, right? It's like they have to be the best group and they are considered the more so upper echelon group. So it's like the results are pretty much the only thing that matters. If it means, breaking a couple of bones to get there, or pretty much skipping over a couple of set standards, then so be it. Not too many to the point that the police will start looking at you real funny, right? Because again, for Marit now, still want to hide the fact that you're a serial killer. So it's like, I will follow the state standards, I guess, for the most part. But, certain things are going to slide because the show must go on and I must have the best show that there is. Like, there's this weird mix of standards going on here. It's never 100% safe, but it's never so unsafe to the point that the police are going to notice, kind of thing. Like, it's weird. It's a weird placement that we are in. The next thing is toxic labels, i.e., gifted and talented to begin with. That makes them sensitive to judgment, right? So, pretty much putting a label on said abilities to begin with. I kind of do feel this way as well. I do feel like, labels basically places you in a box, which is probably why he's so unconventional as an adult, right? Being set in this box, being set in this specific standard of how you're supposed to be, especially with how the entertainment industry can like be at times, setting people in certain boxes and certain standards to follow. There is a good reason why you see like the Disney kid or Nickelodeon kid rebellion, right? It's because the standards set for these kids were strict to begin with, and now the older they get, they're doing everything to rebel. So I definitely probably see that for Hisoka's character as well, right? It's like wanting to live in an unconventional manner due to the fact that like being squished for so long was just irritating. Like, holy shit, it was just like way too much for him. So he pretty much just decided like, yeah, this is too much for me. um I don't want to do that anymore. I want to basically set my own path. I'm hate when people tell me what to do. I've been living that shit for the longest time, either through unforeseen circumstances, right? Like life pretty much is telling you what to do, where it's like, I didn't predict, like way back in the beginning of, this analysis. It's like, he didn't predict his mom passing away. It's like, I didn't predict that. Like, it just seems like out of my control. Like everything is out of my control. And now this time I'm in this entertainment troupe, and it's great that I have all this money and extra resources, but at the cost of pretty much my sanity and perhaps my freedom, because now I'm pretty much just doing whatever and whenever, but it doesn't seem like I have a say in what is being done. So, it's just good fun. All in good fun. Am I right? Next thing is afraid of not meeting expectations and perfectionism. Right. So, despite all of that, despite being like, this whole thing is suffocating at the same time, especially if you have the additional expectation of, I need to make money from said thing. So, if this is not perfect, I literally don't get to eat today, right? It's the scarcity mindset for him, for Hisoka, that comes from poverty that might also be an addition to this particular trait. So, on top of not just being afraid, but literally seeing this as a point of survival. And the evidence for that is like towards the end of the manga, pretty much when like the whole Meritno situation is resolved, quote unquote, if you can call it that. He then pretty much says, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? To put it in simple summary, it's like, what am I going to eat now? How am I going to live now? Considering that his only source of income, which to be fair is pretty high if you want to account for literally everything that he did for this particular entertainment troupe, how's the money going to come in now? I guess we can, depend on the potential Coogan account that may or may not exist, depending on how Meritno set it up. I don't trust that man. So, but he also just didn't want to get caught. So he probably did set one up to pretty much not have the police look at him weird. But how much can you feed yourself off of like the Coogan account, that has been set up? And for those of you that don't know what the Coogan account is, I did explain it in the entertainment section, but I will explain it again. It's pretty much a trust that is set aside for children in the entertainment field for all the work that they've done, and they have a certain amount of money saved for them for like later, whether it be for college or other purposes when they're an adult. So that's set to the side, and that may be great and all. It's like I may be able to eat for a little bit, but I'm not sure how much money like this can ultimately sustain me. Like, will this sustain me? I don't know. That is the ultimate question that, Hisoka might have in his head, and that's valid. Because, like, the only way that you have been surviving for so long, and now it's just, like, gone, and you're still a kid, so it's just like, now what? We're just out here in the trenches. Like this is a very up and down, just instability all throughout his childhood. I'm looking at this as it's like no wonder he turned out the way that he is. I too would lose my shit. Well, yeah, no, I too would be a little bit unstable if this were my situation. There's also loneliness, exclusion from peers, and negative self perspective. Now, with the negative self perspective, we can have a bit of fun with the inferences for this one. I think this probably will come later on. So this is one of those things that's like maybe we don't see it within his childhood too much, but it probably manifested more in his teenhood, right? Especially with like how the beauty standards, and we'll talk about this when we get to the teenhood section. Beauty standards within the entertainment industry are specifically set in. His physical features were probably picked apart piece by piece. So, probably the way that he views his body, similar to like a lot of other people within the entertainment field, is that what one might consider normal, that person who's been in the entertainment field for the longest amount of time might look at it like, I need to surgically zap that out of off my body so I can be seen as like this perfect doll that's easy to consume because that's literally been my life the entire time. Not fun shit, not fun shit. Loneliness, and we see this a lot with his isolation from others and exclusion from peers. Um, Literally being excluded from like other kids and other activities. And we talked about this in the child entertainer section where it's like other kids out here playing and going to school, and he's basically worried about work. Yeah, that's isolating just naturally. On top of that, like some of the adult coworkers that he has, they're not being mature, in my opinion. Not the most mature adults to be around, and they're literally jealous of a child. So they're doing any and everything to harm said kiddo. Yeah, it's not good vibes. The only way that he wasn't fully isolated was again his relationship to Abaki, who is his foster sibling. So that's pretty much the only way that, things weren't completely off the rocker. But other than that, there was just a profuse amount of loneliness and exclusion, which sucks. It does suck. Negative self perception, again, we don't really see this too much, but that isn't to say that it doesn't exist. It probably just manifested in his teenhood more. Your body starts getting picked apart when you're a kid. And then as soon as you hit like those teenage years, like, yeah, teenage insecurity is a normal part of being a kid and being a teen, but it might be a lot worse if you were just picked to shreds for your physical body back when you were younger. I mean, look at like literally a pageant kid, right? And how they pretty much describe their body, right? It might not be the best, and that's because they've been picked apart from a very young age, and they basically have like these very unrealistic expectations of what their body's supposed to be. So we might dive into that a bit more, at least the male version of that, when we get to teenhood. It's definitely something to put tit for tat for now. All right, next we are going to look at the signs of gifted kid burnout. Yeah, we'll see about all that. Hi guys, let's get into signs of gifted kid burnout and how that applies to Ahsoka's character, shall we? The first thing that I want to talk about is headaches and or stomach aches unrelated to physical illness. So pretty much kids that have burnout, this is one of their symptoms. Like there's headaches or stomach aches that are unrelated. So pretty much like say for Hisoka's character, we don't see this, but let's make an inference, a very educated literacy guess, that he were to have these kind of feelings body wise because basically it's the brain's way of telling you to shut down. Like you are putting too much pressure, to the brain. The brain, physical body, it has its connections for reasons of survival. It does what it does to keep you and your body alive. So, if it feels like there's too much pressure, then it's going to start basically acting out and you're going to start having headaches and stomach aches. And this could be something that might end up being chronic for Hisoka's character. It's just something that we don't really see. Like just constant body pain to the point that I feel like for him as an adult, he probably just views it as normal. Like if you were to say like, Abe, dude, are you okay? He'll be like, yeah, totally. It's not okay. The man is not all right. But, it's not what we could do about that. Panic attacks. I mean, maybe there is something we could do, but I don't know. Panic attacks. We don't see this at all for his character, and I don't think that, panic attacks would occur for him at all and or in a traditional sense. So we're just going to leave that at a blank for his character. I don't really see it, so we won't talk too much about it, pretty much. Disinterest in things they previously found enjoyable. Now, he doesn't have a full disinterest for like entertainment, but there are certain aspects that he might be apathetic towards when it comes to doing work within entertainment. There might be a reason why he switched from general entertainment to sports entertainment. And I think that switch is just mostly because general entertainment bored him. So he probably just switched to a different field that's still within entertainment, just in a different way. He pretty much switched from it being of more of an artistic focus, and now it has pretty much a athletic focus instead. And I think that pretty much goes into his competitive drive a bit more. Not to say that, artistically he could not have done that with things like competitive dance or whatnot, but I think he just probably wanted to have that more competitive drive and other, indications of his character applied, so that needs, wants, what have you, would probably be more satiated within the sports world versus the general entertainment world. So I think disinterest, in this case, it's not full disinterest, but it might be more of a switch. Voicing their concerns about school, their friends, teachers, and the future. This again is not in the traditional sense, considering that he didn't have school the traditional way. The best thing that he had was onset tutors, which we'll talk about in the second mini series that I'll have. But for right now, voicing concerns about school, friends, teachers, future, what have you. This probably relates more so to his conversations with Meritno, right? Even before he found out that like he was a serial killer, they would have like these more personal conversations. And even though he didn't dive deep into like his past, because to be fair, why would you? um, Even though that's like his guardian, I don't know, maybe that's trust issues on me. Like, no, I felt that he was justified. And it's like, no, babe, he was not justified in doing that. Like being closed off like that. But turns out, being closed off is a benefit because your guardian was also the town serial killer. It was weird. It was a weird thing where it's like pretty much having that barrier was a protection. But I wouldn't say that's the case for everything in life. So he did take it to the extreme, but sometimes the extreme can save your life. It's not great advice. Don't do it all the time. Don't do it all the time. All right? But I would say voicing concerns the most um was probably during his conversations with Meritno. But it's like somewhat voicing concerns and then somewhat not. I don't think, and this is just me inferencing here, he was allowed to voice too many concerns because, again, back to the child entertainment episode that we done previously, where it's like voicing too many concerns could be seen as more like a deficit to profit. So can't really complain too much, even if there are complaints there, it's basically just keep them in your head. Can't really voice them too much. It's the sad part. So next thing is increased preference for solitary activities. Now, this is something that we definitely see between him isolating himself from the rest of his team. The way that he learns Nen for the most part during the pre-canon manga, he did it for the most part with the help of like Meritno and him learning it with Abaki on occasion. He wanted to perfect it on his own. Like the key thing is like independent learning, and we'll get into the learning style in part two, the part two mini series. But he really had a focus on it being more like solitary. Like he had to achieve this goal. Like this was a personal thing, like really personalized, really just him being in, I don't know if it was a room or what setting he was in, but he was pretty much like developing like his bungee gum for one on his own. Like little to no help, and he did not want help as far as I'm aware. So he was developing that on his own, and how he was doing that was pretty much, I think it was water. He was taking a bath. Now I remember. He was taking a bath. It was pretty much like playing around with his powers and developing it independent from his teachings from like Meritno. So there we go. And quitting when things get tough. We don't see this too much, but again, I think it's more so clashing with the whole if you quit, we won't be eaten type mentality. So I don't think this is something that he does until maybe he gets older, or like the feeling is there, like you feel like you want to quit, but ultimately you don't. And that's more so the persistence of we have to keep pushing because literally we need to survive type mentality. So that clashes with maybe whatever mentality of like wanting to quit. But it's like ultimately not going to do it. Not going to do it. The thought is probably still there for his character though, and maybe we'll see it more when he gets older. But like, especially when he's younger, he's not going to. Like, something has to kind of force him to quit, and in this case, it was his guardian slash teacher slash manager being the town serial killer. It's literally just stopped it from, happening. A change in their eating habits. Is this also so we don't see too much, but we can take a good guess. So pretty much when he was impoverished, obviously there wasn't like too much food, but whatever food he got was probably more like a village approach to begin with. So like not too much food, but enough to be sustainable, enough to feed. And then after, when he was homeless, it went from having some food to having none at all, and pretty much depending on scraps when he was homeless. And then after he went from being homeless to being in this entertainment troupe, he probably went back to having the food be available. However, considering that again they are in the entertainment industry, the inference is there was probably a strict diet, right? Because like, hey kid, your image is being sold to the public, you look great, you look adorable, you pretty much have to stay this shape for a long time. On some, was it Shirley Temple or was there another actor, the actor who did Wizard of Oz, like the original girly, I forgot her name. Her name is literally on the back of my head, but anyways, the actor for that pretty much had her childhood described as being placed on not only all of these drugs, it was really horrible, but also just having these extremely strict diets placed. And I think the reason for that is they just didn't want her image to change. So the extreme approach was pretty much having those strict diets. She's not the only, child actor that went through that. That's just the one that I can remember that went through something like that, where pretty much the diet was so strict, and again having that restriction and being sick of that restriction over time. So I think him being more unorthodox the older he got was probably for that reason. So just having the strict diets place, so it's like the food is there, but the standards are again heavily set to where it's like you can't just eat whatever you want. Which, I mean, to be fair, there is a way to say to kids like, hey, make sure you have a balanced meal. But there's a difference between that and literally restricting their image so that they can stay a certain size forever. Like, that's not healthy. That's definitely going to create some very unhealthy loops that we might see the when he gets older. So yeah, but that is all the signs of gifted kid burnout. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about, and this will be the last thing too, is effects of being labeled as gifted to begin with. Like, what are the general effects of that? Hello, everybody. Let's get to the ending of this entire analysis. We're finally here at the end. Let's now talk about the effects of being labeled as gifted in general and what that does for not only gifted kids in general, but also Hisoka's character in Pacific, because that's who we're talking about. Number one, bad studying habits, or in his case, bad studying slash training habits, right? So, for some of us, spoiler warning if you have not gotten to this part, um, the Hosogi versus Cruella fight. I feel like that's a pretty good example of, for the most part, whether it be within the circus slash entertainment troupe that he was in his childhood, all the way up to his teen slash adulthood, being in Heaven's Arena. He's pretty much got away with like being the prodigy and not having to do much, but advancing compared to his peers around him, right? It's like him being advanced compared to other people. It's like I don't even have to try. I'm just naturally so advanced, right? And now the Hisoka versus Crollo fight is more of a challenge for him, right? Because for once, he's pretty much dealing with an opponent who's like, I don't care that you are quote unquote the best of the best. I outsmarted you. And I think that hurt his ego a bit. And this also applies to other gifted kids as well, because they might face a certain challenge where it's like, oh, I did not achieve the goals that I normally would achieve. This hurts my ego. No, thank you. So, in turn, this creates like this kind of unrealistic expectation that like every time like you don't study too much, it's like my intelligence will save me. Not all the time. Clearly not all the time. Sometimes practice can be a benefit for you, because there will be certain things that you might have set within the practice that will have you prepare for unlikely predicaments, right? Or predicaments that may sway you if you did not have the practice, but if you did have the practice, you'd be like, oh yeah, I totally got this. I seen this during like the practice thing, the practice test, for example, or in his case, it's like I trained for this possibility with said opponent. So like I got this. He did not really do that, right? He just assumed that like the intelligence that he already has, and he does have it. I do want to say, like, it's not that the intelligence wasn't there. It's just that there's certain other skills that you have to build besides like, the set intelligence that you have alone. Certain other skills. That and the whole arrogance aspect, which we'll talk about more when we get to his adulthood. But yeah, bad studying habits can lead you to a lot of horrible situations. You gotta stay prepared. My people's got to stay prepared. Okay, number 2, being a perfectionist to the point of toxicity. For him, for Hisoga specifically, this could pretty much pertain to like how a lot of other entertainers, myself included, look at how we see our work in general. So like for somebody else, it could be like, wow, you had a pretty great performance there, or like you were such a great athlete at that moment. And he could watch that same performance, and this is heavy inferencing, right? You watch that same performance and be like, I was terrible. That was literally my worst. I got to do better next time. And I mean, that can be motivational, but also like constantly degrading your performance to a consistent degree will have negative implications for your brain. It's not healthy, and it's just something that all performers tend to do, whether it be athletes or performers of the artistic sense, right? So, myself included, because I am a performance artist, I also go into this mentality of I could literally see a performance of mine and everybody else is clapping, everybody else is like, wow, that's so amazing, that's so great. And I think it's the worst thing on planet Earth, because I'm seeing this expectation of myself to be the absolute best, to be on top of whatever pedestal I have in my brain, right? So, same mentality. It's being a perfectionist to the point of toxicity. I had to learn over time, right? And again, for Hazoe's character, this is just something that all entertainers probably have to do. It's like the perfect art form, right? Viewing life as art, right? It's like the perfect art form doesn't really exist. And sometimes people see beauty in the imperfections that you do not see. That's just a general thing, right? And I think maybe that's just something that Hisoka might have needed to learn. We might talk about this again all these conversations going to loop back to his adulthood because trust and believe, this is the foundation. So, like being a perfectionist to the point of toxicity, to the point where it's like, I'm looking at this thing, I hate it. Everyone else loves it though. It's a mess to be in that kind of mentality though. It's not great. It's not a great thing. It can be motivational, but it can also be just so naturally degrading. So naturally degrading. The next thing is being too competitive. Now, this is definitely also a part of his character. Um, and we can see this throughout the entirety of his life, but I think it gets really heavy set once it enters like teenhood slash adulthood. So right, once he gets switches from, being in a circus and entertainment troupe to more so athletic, you know, ways of living. So switches from one field of entertainment to the next, sports entertainment now. The competitive aspect, not to say that that wasn't there in the beginning. Like in the beginning, it might have been like, our troop is like the best of the best. Like the circus slash entertainment troop is the best of the best, right? We have to make sure that like we're number one, right? And that translated over and basically expanded over time with, him being like, I am the best thing since sliced apple pie in the heavens arena. And I want to make sure that I'm always on top and always number one. And it's to the point that literally later, I'm chasing a fight with somebody who everybody says it's like, you can't win against this person. And I'm telling myself, yes, I can. I hate when people tell me, say that I can't do something because I absolutely can. It's pretty much very similar to like the Cardi B mindset, even though it's not just her. The Cardi B mindset of like, I like proving bitches wrong. Don't tell me that I'm going to be on the losing end. I'm going to prove you wrong. You're underestimating me, and I don't like that, right? That is Hisoka's mentality, and that really applies to being too competitive, where it's like, you're challenging me. You're challenging me, you're underestimating me. I just love to prove you wrong. And it's just like, you know what? Sometimes not every situation requires you to do that. Sometimes it's okay to chill. Believe in that. It's like, you know what? Maybe you wouldn't be in this mess if you chilled a little bit. Like, I love the confidence, love it down. Typically, I don't hate this mentality, but sometimes, like most of the times within the manga, but especially towards the secession war, like the whole Dark Continent slash secession war, you're basically going, maybe being competitive is your detriment. Chill, my man. We are thinking, chill, my man. This is why you're in this mess. Like, I get it, because bitch, me too. But I have to tell myself, maybe chill. Because you get in some really weird situations by being too competitive. Cool it. Not everything is about winning. Sometimes things just are what they are. And there are some moments where you're not going to be the best. But you know what? That's actually okay. Like, can we relax? Can we believe in relaxation? I don't know. That's probably something for his character to develop and learn in this current arc for the Secession War arc. So we'll see about that. But for the pre-canon, it definitely started from childhood with basically again being placed on the pedestal of like being the very best to begin with. So now I guess it's pretty much upholding that image and keeping that image alive, even though I would argue at some points it can be detrimental. It's not too helpful to do that, but hey, who am I to tell somebody what to do about their own mentality? Number 4, never learn how to ask for help. This is definitely a part of his character. Boy, is that man Hisoka stubborn, okay? When it comes to asking for help, I would argue that if you are trying to defeat like Krollo is someone who works within groups. He's someone who has more of a group mentality to begin with. So again, going back to the number one thing, bad studying habits, if he were to study his opponent, then he probably would have understood it's like he's a group-based person. This is literally how Krollo moves. Even if he says like he's going to fight you alone, just know, not really. That's never been his style. That's never been his style. Some way, somehow, a group will be involved, even if the Phantom Troop is not there. A group is still involved. Somehow. We don't know how. I don't know how. But a group is involved. So, like, with that being said, right, never asking for help. So it's like, it's fine. I could totally defeat Krollo on my own. And even besides that, right, going back to like his pre-kin, because we're talking about his childhood, this all started in his youth and the isolation. Do you see how the isolation goes back full circle with the, hyper individualism? Because pretty much when you isolate yourself consistently, to be fair, again, there's some trauma reasons as to why this happens. The mentality is nobody's gonna help me, right? I'm all alone in this bitch. So no matter what, all situations have to be solved by me and only me. So I'm not gonna ask for help because people expect me to do this on its own. And number two, even if they don't expect me to do it on my own, I've done things on my own. I went from having, in the beginning of his life, right, going all the way back, in the beginning, it's like I went from having a mom to that mom being sick. So now I'm the one that's pretty much kind of providing for the house in a weird way, slash taking care of a sick adult. Said sick adult died. Not fun, right? So I'm homeless. And I pretty much have to depend on myself to survive because no one is going to help a kid out in the streets of Las Vegas. It is not happening. So I have to depend on myself again. And then pretty much I have this job. And in said job, like the adults around me are really strange and they're basically bullying me for being like advanced in my abilities, which when you really think about it again, doesn't make any sense. This goes into like so many different things. Like whenever I see, for example, off topic but on topic, like people jealous of like, let's use Blue Ivy as an example. It's still weird for me. Why are you jealous of a kid? We're gonna keep honing on this because I'm never gonna stop saying how weird it is for adults to be jealous of kids. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, the adults in his life, his co-workers, his adult co-workers, emphasis on adult co-workers, being jealous of said kid and literally trying to sabotage this kid and be like, okay, I'm on my own again. Cause like literally what I'm supposed to depend on, like, yeah, my foster sibling is there. Baki's like, she's great, but she's also another kid. And I need to make my money. So I have to pretty much, go with the Joneses, follow the flow of like the manager that's around here, and I just gotta do what I gotta do to feed myself. Everything's me, me, me. Because to be fair, that was the only point of survival. So now I'm basically dealing with this other person who works with amongst groups. Like that's his strength. I did not predict that, right? Because to be fair for him, it's like I'm gonna be like on his other side here. It's like to be fair, when you said one on one, bitch, that means one on one. Fuck is you bringing clones and shit for? It's one on one. Which, to be fair, on Krolo's side, it's like one on one. This man is like 2 times bigger than me, bitch. I'm going to lose. So that's probably why he did what he did. It's like off of physicality alone. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna lose this bitch. It's the whole. It's so funny how I'm bringing this into this conversation. The whole 100 men versus one gorilla. It's like the gorilla's winning. So, like at that point, bitch, bring a weapon. It was probably Krollo's mentality. I'm so serious. So it was just like a whole mix of different things. But ultimately, for Hisoka, we're going to get into this more, like the development of his hyper independence. Just the whole never asking for help thing pretty much comes from not only him being a gifted kid and having gifted kids in general be pretty isolated from their peers, but also everything else that he experienced in life, which then creates the mentality or the belief system of nobody's going to help me but me. Yeah. Number five, so the next thing, is the expectation to perfect something immediately or else you throw it away. So this pretty much just goes back into what we've been saying before. And again, we're using the examples from adulthood, but even going back to childhood, let's say that, he trained for Yoshida's like role and position. Hypothetically, alternatively, let's say that he didn't perfect it on his first try. What would have been his reaction? I'm going to tell you right now, probably not good. Okay? Because that's the expectation that Hisoka probably set for himself. It's like, I am going to perfect something on the first try. Like, this literally is the expectation, which we can all say, that sounds pretty unrealistic, my brother. Like, because that's not going to happen all the time. But for him, that was the particular thing where it's like, this is just how things are supposed to be. I got to perfect it on the first try. I got to be a winner every single time. I do ultimately think, like, going back to like him being older, and we'll talk about this more for the Hisoka versus Crollo fight, because again, this all clicks together anyways. It's like that might, like, the aftermath of like what happened after, like he resurrected himself as all that. It's like definitely changed his mentality. And I think in private moments, which to be fair, this is a manga, we don't see those private moments too often. But if we were to, that should probably psychologically broke him. Where it was like, wow, I did not win said thing. My expectations were not met. I don't know what to do with this feeling. Very weird vibes for me. Don't know what to do with these feelings. Yeah, so overall, it's just a weird place where it's like, I did not achieve something. And my brain's telling me to give up now because, again, the perfectionism being set in place where it's like, you didn't do this one thing correct, then you're a failure. You failed at everything. And adding on, like, maybe the scarcity mindset that attributed to his childhood was like, you failed? Now you're definitely going hungry. Desperation is approaching. Like, it's a very scary windmill of just all kinds of toxicity in the mind. Like, this is crazy. I would end up insane. No wonder he ends up being the way that he is. Feeling pressured to keep your gifts forever, right? So again, I think this more so pertains to his adulthood rather than his childhood, but also his childhood is in the sense where it's like, yeah, I have these powers, and pretty much these powers are bringing me benefits like money and whatnot, and like just the power, the feeling of the power. And we'll talk about this more, how like him feeling powerful. This goes back to the conversation about what we had as masculinity, you know, see how everything just comes full circle? Masculinity, the association with power, it's like feeling powerful affirms his humanity. If he does not feel that he has that sense of power, then he feels as if his humanity has been discarded. Pretty much how a lot of men are socialized to be, right? It's like, if I don't feel powerful in a certain way, my humanity just feels like it's not there. I feel discarded. I feel useless. I feel as if I have no purpose. And that's mostly because I want to keep this said gift, and this said gift affirms my power. There we go. There we go, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs alike. That's pretty much what it boils down to for him. That's pretty much the mindset for him. And the last thing is prefers to socialize with older peers or peers of a similar level. We see this mostly with him socializing with either like a Baki or Marino, aka his guardian, the most. And again, to be fair, like the two adults co-workers that he met did not give him the very best impression of maybe the adults around him. So the only adult that I wouldn't say trusted, but felt safe enough to at least talk to was his guardian slash manager. Like pretty much being like, you are the only adult that pretty much feeds me. So I guess we out here. And of course, Abahi, which he has a very friendly relationship with, that being for the most part like his foster sibling. So that's probably one of the few times you see him like being a kid for real, which kind of makes me sad. Like, oh, please give this poor boy a hug. All right. And that pretty much concludes part two, which is the psychological consequences of being a gifted kid for Hisoka. So, the next episode, when we come back, is pretty much going to be talking about how does Hisoka's Nen powers connect to him being a gifted kid. So, this is pretty much all the manga evidence that we're going to be discussing. This is nothing but manga talk, specifically for the pre-canon manga that he has. So, we're going to have a lot of fun for part three. So I want us all to come back, come measure. Ooh, English. It's gonna be the end of me. I want us to all come back together and have this conversation within part three. But for right now, I gotta say goodbye to y'all. So goodbye, and I'll see you guys in part three.